Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the National Guard products number 961. This is a ramp component from National Guard. This is a 6-inch sample piece just for purposes of this video. And we're going to go over what this is. This is a component. This component will allow you to get a ramp assembly out to 2-inch overall height. It's 6-inch wide, even though it's heavier than 6. That's because it's measured from where the parts interlock together to give you 6-inch. Okay. Actually, it's measured from the tip here to where the bevel end finishes off there. That's your 6-inch. There is a link below this video to the product brochure that will best help us illustrate what these are used for. When you get that document open, you'll see the 961 on a page with 9 other threshold components, ramp components. On that page, it states that height changes over 1/2 inch require the use of a ramp with slope, not steeper than 1 to 12. So what that means is for every 1 inch in rise, you must have not less than 12-inch in run. That's why this 961 goes from 2-inch over to 1.5 inches down here. Okay. If this was a 3-inch piece, it could only go from 2-inch to 1 3/4 inches naturally. So when you look at the product brochure, you'll see those components. And to me, it's confusing, at least it was the first time to me. It's easiest to start off by looking at the R50. That's just a 1/2 to 0 ramp, 6-inch. Well, that makes sense. If it's 1 to 12, we can go from 0 to 1/2 and do it in 6 inches. If you needed to transfer an elegant way over a 1-inch rise, well, okay, you're going to use the R50, and then behind it, you're going to bring the R954, and that will go 6 plus 6, 0 to 1/2, 1/2 to 1. And that's how you continue to build your ramps together. Also, if you're doing a 961 requirement where you've got to get to 2-inch, you could also order it as the R200. That is shown in the catalog as well, where they literally take all of those individual components, and you would need a total of 4 components to get to 24-inch, which would be an R200, R for ramp 200, 2.00, 2-inch. And you can order it that way as well. It comes back the same way, either components or as a single unit. I'd order it as a single unit. It's less work to do to add those items to the site. So it's shown both ways. You can also take that ramp assembly component, the 957, and cap it on the very back of the 961 to get yourself out to 30-inch, and that would then just elegantly cover over your sill. So if your sill came up right here, well, maybe there was some sort of problem with the floor condition back here and you needed to transfer over at 6-inch, you could add that 957 and do that very gracefully. That would bring you to 30-inch overall width. Now in the rear of that catalog, there is a couple of standalone ramps. There's a 4-inch, and then there's a 6-inch. The 4-inch is handicapped because it doesn't exceed a 1/2 inch in height, therefore not obligated to adhere to the 1 to 12 rule. But because it is higher than a 1/4 inch, you do need to have a bevel on it. Well, that angle certainly is compliant with that. There's also rubber ramps that are there. Don't sell those often, but do occasionally. Very durable sort of item. The advantage of the rubber ramp is it has a closed end. Okay. Now, speaking of the ends, there is a reference in the product brochure to the return closed ends or wings. You can imagine if you're doing a 24-inch wide installation, you're going to have a lot of open space down here, right? So you can order from the factory the return closed ends. It's fabricated material that will allow you to cleanly finish that off. The upside of that is you get a professional consolidated solution. All the parts are in the box. It's ready to be fastened together and anchored down to the floor. The downside is, well, aluminum's costly. What makes the downside is that the ramp ends are very costly. They're noticeably expensive. And it's because of the cost of the material, but it's really the cost of the labor to make them. Okay, it's labor intensive to make those closed ends for the returns. I find that people either order them because they have to order them. They're mandated by the code, by the job. It requires it. It's not optional. I've also had people tell me, no, I don't need them. We're going to pour concrete into this area and the ramp is going to fill the space between these returned ends. Okay, that's great. You don't even need it. I've also had people tell me, oh gosh, I'm not ordering those. That's too expensive. I'm going to make my own. Okay, I don't know what the client did to make his own. I could imagine that it wouldn't be difficult to make your own. If I was going to do it, I probably would get some 1/8 of an inch aluminum and I would probably screw it down to a piece of plywood, set such that I could then move the entire piece through my table saw and rip that aluminum on that angle I would need to give me that nice triangle. That's probably what I would do. Okay, you could use a jigsaw as well, I suppose. You could certainly make your cut on what would be the bottom end and use your factory straight edge to go along your ramp, however you might do it. I'm not a carpenter. I don't make a living doing that stuff. I'm sure someone who does could think of a half a dozen creative ways to solve that problem. I don't know that I would rush to make your own, and I would certainly think long and hard about the cost and material and labor to do so. And given the fact that you might like to have a complete solution from the manufacturer so that you're using everything in accordance with each other, so that there'd be no trouble with any sort of warranty claim should that be the case. I don't think I've ever had a warranty claim on a threshold. But the point of the matter is there's some logic in having the factory just ship it all to you. So think that through. This is available in 3 different finishes. This is mill aluminum. If you don't put anything behind the 961 part number, you're going to get mill finish. That's what this is. If you want dark bronze, you can have that. That's DKB. It'd be a 961 DKB followed by the length. Now, National Guard dark bronze is known to be dark, very dark, in fact. I've had people call me and say, hey, you sent me black. I says, I couldn't have sent you black because they don't make black, but I do acknowledge it's really dark. Occasionally that's a problem for somebody because it doesn't really match. Well, it doesn't match because it's a different anodized by a different manufacturer that they're not meeting any requirement other than dark bronze. That's pretty broad. That's a pretty broad definition. But the majority of time, someone is matching it to some aluminum storefront that is already very dark, and the National Guard is perfect for that. You can do it also third in an SIA finish. SIA stands for literally slick it ain't. That would be a heavy, coarse, applied process that will give you a granular, coarse texture that will all but eliminate the possibility of slippage. Now, I don't think your foot's going to slip on this necessarily, but my foot has slipped on aluminum threshold. They've been smooth and wet at the time, but you do want to be mindful that it might be something you might want to consider, especially when you're doing such a wide threshold, because given the dimensional properties of this, you can imagine a wheelchair is going to be fully on that ramp, fully on the ramp, and a coarse textured surface to eliminate slippage, to make it slip resistant, would very likely be a quite beneficial, possibly mandatory option for this material, so keep that in mind. It's listed in the site in lots of lengths, everything from 2 foot to 8 foot. You can have any length that you want, just indicate in the comment field the net length that you'd like for us to ship the material out at, and we'll be happy to do so. The reasoning is you get a nice factory edge on that. Well, if you're doing an R200, like this, where there's going to be 4 components, I don't know that you're going to be able to cut all of those pieces exactly the same because you're putting them all together. I might have the factory cut those for me rather than try to do it myself, cut that material. Okay, they've got the tooling and the expertise to do it. I'd say let them do it. They're going to cut it from long 16.5 foot extrusions anyway. If you need longer than 8 foot, the maximum listed in the site currently anyway, let us know. We'll quote that for you. If you need 1 or 2 pieces 10 foot long, the freight's going to be quite noticeable because it can't go package service at that point. It can only ship tractor trailer. But if you're doing a dozen openings that are 15 foot wide at a convention center, the freight's not going to be an issue. But keep that in mind. Finally, there's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the National Guard products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. I'm partial to National Guard, and it's because they do a really good job. They focus on weather stripping very well. They're experts at it. They have a couple of other interesting items like metal vision frames that you would see in steel doors and wood doors, and they also have a relatively new line of flood barriers. A couple of steel channels, and you're going to slide a heavy piece of steel into it with some neoprene gasketing in the event to help prevent a flood. And we don't sell a lot of them, but I expect the demand for that with the changing weather patterns over the years is going to noticeably change, where you do have the possibility for flood every so many years, and you just want the equipment to keep it out as best as possible. So you might be interested to look in their catalog for their flood barrier equipment. Below this video is a link to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up all the National Guard products that we sell, but also a link to the website, as well as a link to that full product catalog. Any questions on the National Guard part number 961 ramp component or any other National Guard product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.